Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel for another midweek mystery video. Now please excuse that this week's video is a little bit different. I feel like I've started loads of videos this year already with this video is going to be a bit different. But I've been getting loads of requests to do an update video, giving you some updated information on some cases I've covered in the past. In the past couple of months alone, there's been a crazy amount of new information come out for some huge cases, so I think it's long overdue that I do a video like this. I'll link all of the cases / videos I reference in this video in the description box down below, just in case you haven't heard of them. And I think the fact there are so many huge updates for me to give here speaks a lot of the advances in technology that we're making every single day, especially in DNA technology. Hopefully over the next year or so we'll begin to see many more unsolvable cases get solved, or unidentified people get their identities back. And we're going to start with a Jane Doe case, Orange Socks. She was a Texas murder victim. She was sexually assaulted and strangled before being thrown over a guardrail next to Interstate 35 in Georgetown, Williamson County in Texas. It was October 30th or 31st, 1979, and she was found naked just hours after her death, bar a pair of orange socks, hence the name given to her whilst unidentified. On June 26, 2019, the Williamson County Sheriff's Office tweeted an updated version of a forensic sketch of the victim, nearly 40 years after she was found. That same tweet also urged people to opt in and share their DNA on public genealogy databases such as GEDmatch so they could potentially make a connection. This was the first updated sketch of Orange Socks in a while, in years, and it was drawn by a cold case volunteer who also just happened to be a forensic artist. On August 7th, a woman saw this updated sketch of Orange Socks and called the sheriff's office. The sketch looked an awful lot like her missing sister, Debra Jackson. Debra had left home in 1977 and her parents never filed a missing persons report because she was known to have left home before. They assumed she'd just set out on her own and was doing okay. I mean, we can only speculate at the kind of family dynamics at play here, no judgment. Her sister provides the police with photos of Debra, and her family look at morgue photos of Orange Socks, and they confirm that the physical characteristics matched between them. Orange Socks had very distinctive features, particularly long toes and identifiable earlobes. Her sister also provided the DNA Doe Project with a sample of her DNA. The DNA Doe Project had taken on Orange Socks' case in April 2018, and they'd been actively working on the case with the Sheriff's Office since then. The DNA Doe Project uploaded the sister's DNA profile to the genealogy database GEDmatch, which then matched with the profile of Orange Socks they'd uploaded just a year earlier. Orange Socks was confirmed to be Debra Jackson. At the time of her death, Debra was just 23 years old and left home 2 years earlier. In that time, she worked at the Ramada Inn in Amarillo and at an assisted living facility in Isdal, both Texas. She also worked at a retail company in the same year she was murdered. With so many jobs, she must have met so many people, yet no one ever came forward as recognising her. Police are asking anyone who may have come into contact with Debra during that time to call the Williamson County Sheriff's Office cold case tip line. I'll leave the number along with the sources in the description box down below. Whilst we now have Debra's identity, her case is far from over. We still don't know who murdered her. Henry Lee Lucas did confess to her murder and was convicted of it, but there has been a lot of question as to whether he actually did it or not. He himself later retracted his confession. It seems that the general consensus is that he wasn't the perpetrator, and it has been reported that police have found 2 separate DNA profiles on the Orange Socks that may point to Debra's killer, but the DNA isn't strong enough for testing at this point. Debra being reunited with her identity is a starting point, and I hope they can find her murderer and close this case once and for all. They're halfway there. The next update I have for you is a case I actually covered fairly recently, the case of Paul Fronczak. Paul Fronczak was just 1 day old when a woman posing as a nurse at the hospital took off with him. The FBI launched a huge search for this missing child, and eventually they returned with an abandoned baby found in New Jersey. A baby that had very similar distinctive ears to the stolen baby. Paul's parents, Chester and Dora Fronczak, adopt this baby and raise him as their own, believing him to be Paul, only to find out years later through a DNA test that this was not their kidnapped son. The man who had grown up as Paul sets out to find out who he is and find his own biological family. And he also goes out to find his parents' biological missing son. He succeeded in finding his own biological family quite a while ago, and it was announced towards the end of just last year that the real biological Paul Fronczak had been found. He's now 55 years old and living apparently in rural Michigan, but investigators have declined to provide any more public information than that. CBS News has stated that the real Paul has children of his own now, and it was reportedly the children who became convinced their father was the real Paul Fronczak, urging him to take a DNA test. Although other news outlets report that he was actually tracked down via DNA, so we can't be sure of all of the circumstances surrounding this. Paul has written on his blog, foundlingpaul.com, that they actually found the real Paul Fronczak in late 2018, but he desired to remain anonymous, and so they didn't go public with the story. His main mission has always been to reunite his mother with her biological son. I don't think any more information will be released about this anytime soon. I just think it's incredible that they did manage to find the real Paul, alive and hopefully well. Oxygen reports that he's currently fighting cancer though. Biological Paul says that he's been overwhelmed with the revelation and he wishes to remain anonymous. Next up, we have the case of Rene McCrae. Yes, it's definitely pronounced Rene, short for Christina, and it's not Renee. I got a lot of stick for that in the comments on that video. Rene disappeared in 1976 with her 3-year-old son Andrew, and it's currently Britain's longest running missing persons case. She was last seen on Friday the 12th of November 1976, just over 42 years ago. She dropped her oldest son at her estranged husband Gordon's house in Inverness, where she lived, before heading out of the city on the A9. People thought at the time that she was headed to Kilmarnock to visit her sister, but it was actually later revealed that she was going to visit a man called Bill McDowell, who she'd been having an affair with for many, many years. Only her best friend Valerie knew of this affair, and it's thought that Bill was actually Andrew's biological father and not Gordon. Later that night, Rene's BMW is spotted burning in a lay-by on the side of the A9, and by the time the police arrive, it's nothing more than a burnt out shell. Rene and Andrew were nowhere to be found. For years and years, there was nothing in this case pretty much. The police searched the surrounding areas and the quarries to no avail. Bill admitted to the affair but was never arrested, although it seems like he was always the prime suspect in this case. I mean, he had a motive for her murder. He told Rene that he would leave his wife for her and Andrew, but had no such intentions. Witnesses reported seeing that night a man dragging something they thought was a dead sheep not far away from this burning car. Rene was wearing a sheepskin coat the night she disappeared. Others reported seeing a man with a pushchair near Leenack Quarry in Dalmagary. Andrew's pushchair was also missing from the scene. It should have been in the car and it wasn't there. In recent years, investigation teams have escalated their efforts in re-examining this case, hoping that modern forensic and investigation techniques would lead to a breakthrough. The lead detectives vowed to leave no stones unturned, and they seem to be really intent on finally solving this case. In October 2018, it was revealed that a police diving unit had been instructed to scour the depth of Leenack Quarry, which is very deep with water at this point. The original searches in this investigation also very much focused on this quarry, but the police got a lot of backlash at the time for their poor search of the area. Since 1979, hundreds of tons of earth have been deposited into this quarry from nearby building works, so now it's only about half the size it would have been when Rene and Andrew first went missing, making the search now a lot more complicated than it would have been 40 years ago. But in June 2019, it was announced that wheels from a pushchair and bones had been found in the quarry, after more than 13 million litres of water was pumped out of it. Talk of the bones seemed to die down quite quickly in the media, so I'm going to assume that they ended up being animal bones, nothing to do with the investigation, but a lot of the news outlets seemed to really focus on the pushchair wheels. They were definitely the same kind of wheels that would have been used on Andrew's pushchair. And then in September 2019, just a few months ago, detectives arrested a 77-year-old man in connection with murders, Bill McDowell. It's not been revealed if this arrest was in connection with the search of the quarry or not, but just hours after being arrested, McDowell made an appearance at court, charged with 2 counts of murder and attempting to pervert the course of justice. He made no plea and was committed for further examination and was granted bail. As of today, January 30th, 2020, there is no further information on this case, and I can't tell you when the court case is going to be, but I'm very intrigued to find out what further comes out with this. The next update is on a case I actually covered quite recently, the case of the McStay family. They were a family of 4 who disappeared in 2010, only to be found buried together in the desert in November 2013. I've not got a huge amount to update you on with this one. I think I ended the last video with the fact that Chase Merritt, who was a business partner of Joseph McStay, had been found guilty of murdering the family and that the death sentence had been recommended. Well, on January 22nd, 2020, just last week, it was confirmed that Chase Merritt has been sentenced to death for his actions. He proclaimed his innocence before his sentencing, but the court seems pretty convinced of his guilt. I had somebody contact me recently saying there'd been some new updates in the Nicky Verstappen case, but when I gave it a Google, every news article with updated information was in Dutch. So a huge thank you to Emma on Instagram for helping me with some translations here. So Nikki was an 11-year-old Dutch boy who disappeared on the 10th of August 1998. His body was found the next day. In August 2018, a 55-year-old man called Jos Breck was arrested for his murder after investigators made a DNA match to a tissue and cigarette found near the body. I would actually recommend watching the full video for this case if you haven't already. There's a lot more to it than I can summarise here and it's all pretty important. But the latest in this case seems to be that the prosecution has tried to get the charge changed to qualified manslaughter, which basically means that Jos Breck killed Nikki to cover up for another crime. The maximum sentence for this is 30 years and it's believed that Breck suffocated Nikki to cover up the fact that he'd abducted him and raped him. Breck is holding on to his right to remain silent and has said that he doesn't know Nikki, although new evidence may have come out that witnesses saw Nikki and Breck together on a bike before his death. In June, Breck wrote a statement about the case that he said would explain everything, but he refuses to read it to anyone. His lawyer has said that he will read it when the time is right. It's all a little bit strange because it seems like he's denying knowing Nikki, but he's also apparently written a statement which he says is going to explain everything, and I assume that everything means the murder, so it's all very strange. A lot of people actually think he's innocent from what I can gather, but the police have his DNA very near the body. It's all very confusing. Again, I'm going to be following this court case very closely. The Somerton Man. This was probably the second or third case I ever covered. He was a John Doe who was mysteriously found dead near the shore of Somerton Park Beach, just south of Adelaide in Australia on December 1st, 1948. It was later confirmed that he was poisoned, but likely in a suicide. This is one of the world's biggest unsolved mysteries. If you search mysteries on Google, this is guaranteed to be one of the first ones that comes up. Rumours have been rampant for decades that he had an unrequited love living nearby, somebody that he had perhaps fathered a child with, a boy named Robin. Robin actually died in 2009 after having children of his own, and now the Somerton Man's potential grandchildren want answers. In October last year, 2019, the South Australian Attorney General granted approval finally for the Somerton Man to be exhumed, so DNA samples could be obtained to be compared with that of his potential granddaughter. A DNA match will likely not lead to immediate answers as to who he is, but it will confirm or deny the long-standing rumours about him fathering a child with a local nurse, which could lead to further answers. Also, once his DNA has been obtained, it could lead to other potential matches that could lead to his true identity. It could be put into a database and things could pop up. These things can usually take a while. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved in exhumation, but I for one am really excited to find out if there's a DNA match between him and his alleged grandchildren, and I can't wait to see what answers this leads to. I mean, in terms of identifying Jane and John Doe's, the Somerton Man is really up there. He's the one that everyone wants to get identified, and if this DNA technology can identify somebody who died over 70 years ago, who's been unidentified for 70 years, that is going to be huge. Talking of Doe cases, there's also been a small update in the Isdal Woman case, who was found dead at Isdalen in Norway in November 1970. Her death was ruled a likely suicide, but there's never been any answers as to who she is or why she ended up where she did. There were loads of rumours flying around about her when she was first discovered, that she was a spy, that she was working for the Soviet Union, that she was running away from somebody, and there's never been any answers. In 2018, the BBC and the Norwegian equivalent, NRK, published a podcast series entitled Deaths in Ice Valley, exploring this case from all angles. It's been streamed or downloaded more than 5 million times. Awareness like that is invaluable in cases like this, and it's proven just how invaluable awareness is when in 2019 a geneticist with the DNA Doe project, the same people that helped identify Debra Jackson, contacted the Death in Ice Valley team to offer help identifying the woman through genetic testing. An article from last June said that the wheels are in motion, but it doesn't seem like there's been anything new since then. That same BBC article also spoke of a handbag that had been found buried about 15 centimetres below the surface, about 40 metres away from the Isdal Woman's body was discovered. The bag had clearly been there for many years and the tree roots had sort of grown in and around it. The bag was sent to a forensic lab for testing, and it's so old that anything that was inside the bag has long been destroyed, but the bag itself held up pretty well. It's a blue-grey bag with red stripes and short straps, similar to the kind you'd find on a child's bag. It's thought to date back decades, to around the same time that the Estelle Woman was found. I think they'd hoped to find some form of identification inside, but they had no such luck. That would be way too easy, wouldn't it? But is there a possibility that the Estelle Woman buried her handbag before committing suicide? Could it be worth searching the surrounding area to see if they can find anything else? I mean, they're the experts, I'm sure they already have. So there's some of the main updates I found on cases I've previously covered on my channel. If you would like a more in-depth look, all of the full videos will be linked in the description box down below, like I said. If you know of any other updates in a case I've covered, then please feel free to put it down below. I intend to do these videos more often from now on, maybe every 6 months or so, just to keep all of the information as fresh as possible. I just want to end this video with a shout out to some of my incredible gold channel members: Maddie Bernard, Alexandra Smith, Susan M and Joe Cannon. Thank you so much for all of your support. You're all incredible people. If anybody else be interested in becoming a channel member, then you can click the button below this video to learn a little bit more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week with a fresh mystery. Bye guys.